Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hi again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. It's another Monday evening and Edwin is with us. Edwin, how are you doing?
I'm barely with us, Martin. I'm just barely with us. These turbulent winds that are blowing out there, not only with the natural winds that are occurring in the mountains of late, but also the property winds and the turbulence around that. There's a lot of noise out there, and people are. I think they're being swept. Some are being swept. Some are falling on the behinds. Others don't know which way to turn. But there's a lot happening, and I think things are only going to get more concerning moving forward as we head into the spring selling season. What do you reckon?
I think that's probably right. And of course, the international context here is Jackson Hole, where then Mr. Powell basically said rates are going up, and everybody else said rates are going up, and the market said, "Oh shit!"
Then we've got renters as well. I mean, it is mayhem out there, Martin.
Yeah.
Then we got we're going to introduce. I'm going to introduce Prince El Gato, the new addition to the clan here, because he's being displaced. People are having to move back home. People are having to move back interstate in order to be with their loved ones and they can't take the little friends, the loved ones with them. So we couldn't find Prince El Gato. His real name's or his original name is Blinks, but we decided to call him Prince. Dusty wanted to call him Prince, and we couldn't find anybody to take care of him, so we decided to adopt him ourselves.
Oh, what does Dusty and Evan think about it?
Well, Dusty and Evan, they were the ones that put their hand up first after trying a few different families that we knew that would look after Prince, and it's just becoming more and more difficult with regards to work situations, rental accommodation, tenancies that don't allow pets, and so forth. So it's really becoming somewhat turbulent for the little friends as well. And so this is where people are going to be thinking twice where they're going to be buying and what they're going to be buying, as well as where they're going to be renting and the rental leases that they're going to be signing moving forward. So there's a lot happening out there. You've been very vocal with regards to the cost of living, the interest rate rises, the inflation. Is it inflation? Is it an inflation? Is it recession? Is it not? Whatever. All these things that are happening out there, it's just putting people in such a spin that they don't know which way to turn.
No, it's interesting. This last week, some of the real estate personalities have been a little bit more muted. They were quite celebratory last week, but that was short-lived. And Christopher Joy tweeted out again, prices are down again, so it's still tracking lower.
We got the what do you call it? The typical pundits out there that were beating their chest. It's all over Red Rover. Look, we know that the governments are looking for a soft landing. We know that the governments don't want this. The property prices to fall any further than what the banks are saying that they would fall. We know that the data is delayed, so some are already talking 10, 15% in some areas. In some areas, we're already experiencing back to 2018, 2017 sales. So in apartments are just a different story of their own. So, but at the end of the day, we know two things. The government don't want to have a hard landing. They will try everything within their power. We've been talking about it for months, that they will pull all sorts of levers in order to have this soft landing, and which we're going to be talking about later on as well in part 3 of the scenarios with the immigration and what's happening in WA with our friend Rob. And the other thing is that's also concerning, but the government have lost control of and they don't want to speak about is, the tenancy side of things, the rental side of things. What new term are they going to call the issues that renters are facing? Because it's obvious that no government wants to talk about it, but yet it is going to hit us. It is going to hit us like the fastest locomotive, moving towards a standing object. It is going to be catastrophic. Families are being displaced, and little friends are being displaced, as we just mentioned earlier on. So it is shameful. But what do you do?
Yeah, it's definitely very concerning. And of course, the migration volume will be turned up to 11. They're talking about permanent migration. It could be even 350,000 or some massive number like that. No idea where they're all going to come from and where they're going to go to. But it's going to put another underpinning on property prices in some areas, maybe, if they all turn up. But it's interesting, a lot of other countries are also offering huge incentives to try and get migrants to go to Canada or the UK or Germany or wherever, so they're basically being offered lots of different alternatives. So maybe they won't arrive.
Well, look, I believe that they will. I believe that a lot will come. And the numbers that will come will influence the market in certain pockets of the different cities. As I said, it's going to be in pockets where the particular demographics, the cultural groups that are congregated around certain suburbs, those pockets are going to rise in price. I believe that very strongly because of other indicators such as the WeChat chatterers that are looking in those areas, in those pockets, from an investment point of view, because that those pockets are the ones that are getting the better bang for their buck, or the better return in terms of what they're spending and what the rental incomes are giving them. And unfortunately, this is another blemish in the government's of all persuasions, is the fact that it's this price bracket that is going to be influenced by the local WeChat chatter investors. Is that bracket where the first home buyers generally jump into, which is the 750 to let's call it the 750 to $1 million price bracket, and these are where the homes are going to jump. This is my belief, Martin. It's going to happen probably within 3 to 6 months, and this is what we've been talking about, the WeChat chatters and what they're doing to keep our friends and followers abreast of what potentially is to come. Now, you say there are other countries that are also baiting, conning, whatever you want to call them, trying to influence them, bribing them to go over. Look, it wouldn't surprise me, and I spoke about it before, it wouldn't surprise me if we start offering all sorts of incentives to, apart from payments of the visas and that. It wouldn't surprise me if we started offering all sorts of monetary incentives, such as home grants or rental grants or the like, when I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars for the migrants to come over. But again, we also go back to the size of our market. We are not a very big market in comparison to your Canadas, your UKs, your other parts of the world. And so when we've got let's say 1,000 families coming into Sydney and taking refuge in an area where the rental market is already straining, such as your Blacktown LGA or your Liverpool's LGA, well, it's going to be a future stress, and rents are going to continue to go through the roof. And it's only a small amount of families that can have great influence on these small markets, because we are not a large market in comparison to other countries.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point. It moves the needle quite significantly, even if it's a small move up or down. But just before we get on to talking about the rent sector, we should just talk about the China's WeChat chatters, right? Because there's this thing called DEFCON. And where are they currently deafening Kong to?
Look, there's a lot of stuff happening over in China, and they're calling DEFCON between DEFCON 2 and DEFCON 3. So really, we're getting closer to I think they're sitting around DEFCON 3. There's been a lot of military what would you call it? Upheaval between the Americans flying so close to the border there, and there's just a lot happening there. And obviously, look, you've got to have a distraction there in China as well as in America in order to to keep the people's minds away from what's really happening from the proverbial shit show that's happening in other country. So you've got to have, and is the war, is a potential war going to be that big distraction that's going to basically kickstart their economies again and get something happening again? Because at the moment China is in a bad way economically, and with all the riots and everything, we don't hear a lot about it. But obviously, through our sources, we get to see and we get to hear a lot more than what the Western media plays out in in the mainstream, and from our WeChat chatter sources there in mainland. So it's and then we've also got a huge drought happening in mainland China, where there's where the places that are experiencing 45, 47 degrees heat. And the local governments there have turned off the power, and people can't, food's gone to waste. Chook farms have gone. The animals are dying. Farmlands are just being decimated. People are literally dying, from exhaustion and lack of food and water and all sorts of things. And it's so there's a lot happening, other than obviously what the whole situation that's happening there over between Taiwan and China and America. So who knows? So they're calling DEFCON 3 at the moment, Martin. So we're getting close to to somebody dropping a bomb somewhere.
Yes, the US actually, of course, drove a couple of their big ships between the straits between China and Taiwan the other day, just to shake everybody up a little. So that'll be quite interesting. And what we might do, Edwin, now is just move directly on to bring Rob in. And I'll bring Rob in first. Hi, Rob. Good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. Now, this is a conversation pick up from last week when we were talking about the rental story, and particularly WA, because you're based in WA, some of the things that are going on over there. So, Edwin, do you want to lead off on the conversation?
Yeah, sure. Rob, you and I had a bit of a discussion on the back end of Twitter with regards to what was happening. I asked you a few questions with regards to what your premier was trying to do, and he's trying to bring in overseas talent to fulfill a lot of these jobs. What the hell is going on there? What happened to the local talent? Have you guys? Don't you guys know how to nail timber together, or how to make a coffee, that you need to get import talent from overseas? Give us a bit of a your observation. What's going on? Obviously, we're going to talk about rentals, and we're going to talk about homes not being completed because of the shortages of labour and tradespeople.
Yeah, look, I think here in WA, everyone who wants a job has a job, and I think if you don't have a job today in Perth, especially, you probably don't want one. I mean, that's the situation we seem to be facing here in the city.
But why is the government wanting to bring in all this talent? Why the shortages? I mean, is it because they can't work? Like the local talent can't work? Because is it because of the mandates, or because what health issues? What's going on? Did everybody bail out of WA? Is that what happened? They came over to the East Coast?
I think just a massive shortfall, in available workers. I think there's been a massive boom in employment, and I think then you couple that with the usual shortages of skilled workers in a particular workforce or particular sort of profession. But that now seems to have spread to both skilled and unskilled workplaces now, where there's just such a shortage. I mean, you walk the streets, of the city, and you've just got in every second or third window, a situation vacant.
And what about the construction industry, Rob? What's happening there with regards to the startups? I mean, there were a lot of people that there was a lot of take up of the incentives, of the bribes that the government put out in between 2020 and 2021, and Martin and I were very vocal about it, and we said, watch out, and make sure you're vigilant as to moving forward with that, because we could see the shortages of materials, we didn't really see how big of an impact the labour force was going to be. But obviously, over the last 6 months or so, we've been talking about that. But what's happening there with regards to your residential construction as opposed to your commercial stuff?
Yeah, look, I think I would not want to be a first home builder right now. I think, the squeeze for materials, the squeeze for labour, and, if you've just got a slab poured at the moment, I think, I'd be a little bit worried, when will my home be completed? I think the smarter builders probably stopped selling house and land packages some time ago because I think, a number of them could probably foresee it, but probably not enough of them. We've seen that big uptake, I guess thanks to grants and, a lot of money priming the economy, especially here in WA. And look, perhaps to some degree, people on the East Coast who did suffer longer lockdowns and much harsher restrictions granted. But I think governments of all persuasions played their hand a little too hard. They really overplayed, the amount of money that needed to go in the economy. And now we're seeing that pressure here. We're seeing a massive shortfall in materials, a massive undersupply in labour, and constructions that can't be completed or are just blowing out. Personal experience, we've got a number of tenants that we rent to who have just, for the last 2 years have been sort of just extending their lease another 3 months, another 6 months, another 4 months. And, I've got one tenant who's come back to us 3 times for an extension, all because, the builder promised. Remember we talked about a 6-month lease. Yeah, we probably should have taken 9 or 12 back then because they keep kicking it down the road. These are tenants at all stages of their construction, from start to finish.
Well, I've got a question to follow up on that, and that is on the rental side. What's happening to rents? Are they going up significantly at the moment over in the West?
Yeah, look, they are. And we've seen, so let's look at everything in the context of from March 2020. Let's sort of use that as a line in the sand. In the markets I operate in, we've seen rents in our portfolio increase anywhere from between about 16 and 36%. On average, and that's across a broad cross section of rental values. Anywhere in the 300 a week mark, all the way through to $900 to $1,000 a week rents. So a very big broad cross section across a number of different demographics. In terms of the supply, we've seen a reduction of about 16,000 homes in the rental market.
That's a lot of homes. What about in terms of apartments and homes, Rob? What can you see between as to what's happening between the two types of dwellings?
So look, a little bit of a lag between the two. So again, looking at the snapshot of that from March 2020, I guess as housing, early on in the pandemic, so to speak, I think people were not sure what was going to happen, as we would rightfully think. So look, a lot of people, a lot of landlords locked in leases where they could. A lot of tenants sort of at that time sort of thought, well, we're not being forced to move. But then we had that sort of rush of, influx of migration, I guess people returning to Australia. The preference for most of those was to take a dwelling, a standalone sort of home as opposed to an apartment. I think as a lot of that stock dried up, we certainly saw in the markets that we operated, and we probably got to a point by about November last year where the type of home, the type of dwelling didn't matter. Whether it was a freestanding standalone home or an apartment, the sheer scarcity of stock, suddenly people were interested in the CBD again. What we saw, so those that I guess weren't as desperate to secure accommodation. Desperate as a loose term. Say, for example, you've got someone who's rushing back from, overseas somewhere, wants to come back to Australia, maybe has a property, but they have a lease with their tenant, so they're looking for something themselves. A lot of those people took what they could get, so they just wanted a roof over their head. The other shift early on that we saw as lockdowns occurred and as certain businesses were shut, in particular, gyms, recreation facilities, pools and that sort of thing, people shifted and sort of said, well, actually, we'll exit that apartment market again because I don't want, I don't want the government, I don't want the local council, the strata shutting down my gym or pool. I can put a gym in the garage. I can have a pool in the backyard. No one will tell me what to do in my own four walls. So, there was a bit of that shift in mentality too. But eventually we've seen an uptick in the apartment market, but there's still a lag. There's still a definite lag. I put a house up for rent in the suburbs and an apartment for rent in the Perth CBD. And, we'll get the house in the suburbs, let within 3 or 4 days. And, the apartment in the CBD might still take 2.5 weeks.
And just one question about further out, because obviously there's some, middle Perth and then you've got the inner suburban Perth. But north and south of Perth along the coast, you've got these really big, long strips where there's been a huge amount of development over the last 20 years. There's certainly areas that I see as very high levels of mortgage stress at the moment and rental stress. Are they behaving the same way, or is there a different dynamic out of that sort of central Perth area?
So, look, it's funny. Everywhere is a little bit hectic at the moment. So whether it's a property in that sort of inner ring and, the more traditional suburbs of Perth, a few kilometres either side of the city, or we go further out. A lot of my business is in a northeast corridor, so out towards the hills and the Swan Valley. And look, we find that, out there, in terms of any rental stress, it's non-existent. And that might be to do with, I guess, the average tenant we deal with. But, as it stands today, we don't have a single residential tenant in any form of arrears. So, I mean, that's probably a bit to do with tenant selection and the client we deal with. But, there's not great amounts of, I guess, rental arrears reported amongst my colleagues either. Around the mortgage stress, look, we can see that's definitely starting to bite that one. I've had a number of clients approach me over the last couple of weeks to tell me, look, the rates are starting to bite. Now, I sort of look at that and say, well, I think anyone would be mad to think that rates were ever going to stay with a 2 or 3 in front of them, as a prime lending rate or whatnot. But a lot of clients are starting to find that, 3 successive, 50-odd point rises are starting to bite them, and that any form of rent increase that they could put on their property will not keep pace with that for them. So there's definitely some mortgage stress starting to bite out there. I think there's definitely some people struggling, and not everyone, but we probably get about 3 calls a week from our portfolio of owners just contemplating life and where things are going.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not uniform across the whole of the area. I see that in my modelling. One other question, though, is Airbnb, because certainly through COVID in the East Coast, a lot of people who had Airbnb basically put longer-term tenants in through COVID and then kick them out again and have gone back to the Airbnb where they can get effectively bigger returns. Is that happening also down the West Coast as well?
Look, we don't see, I don't see a lot of it in the areas I operate in because, look, they're traditionally not, the traditional Airbnb areas. Look, it seems, and sort of what I see through media and what a lot of my colleagues sort of talk to me about is, obviously it's very popular in the tourist centres, so especially sort of down south, the Margaret Rivers and the Dunsboroughs and areas like that. I think there were some reports recently where, it's almost 3 or 4 to 1 Airbnb versus traditional rental accommodation. I think the government's talking about, possibly tinkering with planning laws, how they can curtail a lot of that. In the city of Perth, there are some restrictions now on how long a property can be, an Airbnb property or minimum lease terms and things like that, I guess, to try and stamp it out. Some stratas have attempted to stamp it out as well by sort of tweaking their bylaws. Look, it's one of those things, I guess, isn't it? Airbnb filled a void for a short stay market or a hotel market. I mean, Perth is one of those cities where we just get massive lags. If we need, 1,000 or 2,000 rooms of hotels right now, they should have been built 3 or 4 years ago. We're just the city of, with WA, wait a while. I mean, look, I'm all for Airbnb. I think it fills a void in the market. I don't want to tell, a property owner what they can and can't do with their property. I get that, but, in particular, these Airbnb homes, a lot of them are in prime tourist markets where there just isn't the traditional accommodation that one would book in the CBD, or even in the suburbs.
Rob, what we're seeing in the East Coast here is we're seeing in Sydney anyway. we're seeing a lot of your dodgy granny flats, boarding homes style dwellings where they split a house, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom, or turn a 3-bedroom into a 5-bedroom house, incorporating the lounge room and dining rooms as another bedroom. So there's all sorts of shenanigans going on, and unhandily, and basically people are living in death traps. As far as I'm concerned, but are you seeing any of that in the areas that you manage, or through your contacts there, where people are taking those sort of risks and accommodating multiple groups in a house, the like?
No, look, we don't see it. We don't see a lot of that. And I get what you mean. I mean, look, I started my, property career in Melbourne, and, even 20 years ago, you'd see a little bit of that, a lot of hotbedding going on, and certain groups sort of coming together, and, a share house would suddenly turn into, 3 or 4 people living together very quickly into maybe, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. We don't encounter a lot of that here. That said, I think, there is a reasonably high level of homelessness or people without homes in WA broadly, some through choice, some through no fault of their own, and anywhere from living in their cars to the streets. I think that's more of an issue and a concern, I think, than sort of the situation you described. That's one we just don't see. But people on the street, very common. And my office is, I look out my window over here and I can see the CBD. I'm literally a few streets from the CBD, and even around where my office is, there are high numbers of people without homes, people living on the street.
So the $64,000 question then is, where the hell are these 10,000 imports going to be accommodated that your Premier wants?
Well, that is the $1 million question. I mean, we the number of job vacancies in Western Australia, is significant. The net migration from other states to Western Australia is significant. The net migration expected, from overseas and people continuing to return to our state is huge. Where are they going to live? I don't know. But, ultimately what it means is vacancy rates will continue to fall. It may encourage any of those remaining, Airbnb stock back into the market. Not going to be made any easier by, and I know your state has had it, and other East Coast states and territories have experienced this, but we're going through a review process of our Residential Tenancies Act at the minute. Look, ultimately, that may make it more challenging for investors. So if more investors leave the market, and, we go back to that figure, we have 16,000 investors exit the market since, March 2020. We know that because we actually see the bond data itself. These are actual data, bonds lodged with the bond administrator. There's a lot less now than there were then. So they're genuinely exits from the market. So anything that tinkers, and shifts the balance any further, we just can't afford to have those investors out of the market, especially if they want to bring in, such a significant number in this state and others.
Yeah, well, Rob, that's been very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing your experience of WA, and it's nothing like getting it off, directly off on the ground, as it were, because we over this side don't often, really get to understand the granularity over there. So I really appreciate your time today, and keep on sending the intel, and, when you've got something else to report, you'll be welcome to come back on again.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Edwin.
All the best, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. Well, there you go, Edwin. It just really shows you, doesn't it, that it's a really, really, really tricky market over there. But the big question is the same everywhere. Where are all these migrants gonna live?
Well, Jose's building is chicken coop, Martin, and the penthouse is almost finished. So we started at $150 a week, but we're looking at $300 a week now. Look, they may be a little bit small, but look, small and cozy.
That's small and cozy. Exactly right. Yeah. Well, it's worth just noting the numbers, right? So they're up again. More properties are coming on the market.
Oh, look, they are, and this is the interesting thing. But don't let us tell anybody. we say you've got to pay close attention to the numbers. The uptick in the listings were very evident throughout winter when we should have had a retreat, but we didn't. I don't think we even had 1 week that the numbers retreated over winter, and spring's just started. So this is it. This is the next 2-3 weeks are going to be very, very critical to determine how the trend is going to be. So we're starting pretty much the same as the last week of winter, around the same figures. Likewise with the auction numbers. I still don't see any confidence in the people with regards to the sales that would be achieved in other when it's a hot market, but given the fact that a lot of people are now starting to come to terms with the fact that it is very much a cooling market and there's a lot more properties on the market, they don't really want to go to that auction scenario where you end up people not turning up, or you only have your dummy bidders Inc. Turning up to spur things along. But the interesting thing, as what Rob's mentioned, and what we're also noticing here, is the houses for rent in the Sydney region are very, very low, extremely low. And from last week's figures, although it's not a lot, but it is nevertheless it has impacted. It does have a big impact in the suburbs. We've started this week a lot lower in terms of the rental numbers for homes for rent than last week. So that is really concerning, given the fact that we're also on a big push, for this, the influx of migrants.
No, it is very concerning, and pretty much wherever you look, you've got the same issues. I was talking to someone the other day up in Queensland. They've got the same issues there with absolutely no stock in terms of the rental accommodation at all. And interestingly, again, rents are going up. People are having to move into smaller, less salubrious areas to try and to get a property to fit their budget. So there's a lot of sort of mobility in the renting as well. It's really sticky. And this is before migration has really picked up.
Well, that's right. It's not going to. A lot of it's not going to happen for another 3 or 6 months, realistically. And even with what Rob was talking about, and what we know here, and I think we've mentioned it before, and that is that although the rates are going to be going up, and there is a bit of pressure with the investors holding the bag when they've overstretched themselves. One way or another, with having multiple investment properties around Australia, unlike the gentleman over in Queensland that has 238 or so. But but then again, there's the developers that are holding on to thousands themselves. Yep. But look, outside of that much, and you've got this issue where things don't play out as quickly as what people would like it to play out. Like we say, mortgage stress does not turn into mortgage delinquency, but for a number of years. Yeah. When you've got rates going up, and people and you've got your investment property out there, if you come unstuck, or if you have a shortfall, well, you can't just go tell the property manager, listen, I want you to increase the rent by another 10-15%. If they're on a fixed term lease, that fixed term lease has to expire, and you have to give the 10 and 60 days notice in order to giving them notice that there's going to be a rental increase. So whilst you're in the fixed term lease, leases may have started, maybe halfway, or maybe 3/4 of the way. You've got to wait until the fixed term lease expires before the rental increase can occur. So there's always a time. Likewise with this immigration, yes, the immigration policies changed. Yes, they changed the criteria, and yes, they do want migrants from English-speaking countries so that they can slot into jobs straight away, as we spoke about many weeks ago, with how those laws or those regulations had been changed already. So we already knew about this, and this is why the people that are coming over, they're not looking for apartments as much as what the Chinese community were looking for in terms of accommodation, because they're so used to living in these high-rises. In these huge cities where it's just high rise upon high rise, the migrants that are coming into Australia that are being coerced to come into Australia by way of students or workers of all different classes. They are people that are predominantly going to gravitate towards homes, and this is where the shortages are, and this is where our local politicians don't get it. They don't understand. They're just too thick-headed to enact and to push local governments to make better decisions and clearer and get rid of the bullshit red tape that they have in order to have your medium density developments, which is sustainable, which is more greener, you may say, than having these high-rise developments in where there's absolutely no infrastructure.
Absolutely, it was very important, I think, to understand the mix of property is the real question, isn't it? And I also agree with you that sometimes I suspect that the local authorities are making decisions based on how many fees they can generate, and I suspect they get more fees from a high rise than a low rise. Well, there you go. That probably explains the behaviour, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a conspiracy, Martin. Next thing you're going to tell me is that we didn't land on the moon in 1969.
Well, we're just sending a rocket back now. I think it's going up in about 6 hours' time. So let's see whether it takes off or whether it doesn't, or whether somebody will say, no, the whole thing's a con, right? We haven't ever gone there. So, but anyway, talking about conspiracy theories, right? What's wackier than a conspiracy theory? Well, here's a couple.
Look, this is they're getting wackier, and our followers are just sending them through one after the other. They must love this segment, Martin, and you've got to do that shingle. Look, you got fake auctions. You got agents not allowing access before people are making offers. Access to do building best reports before they make offers, which is absolutely diabolical. This is I've never heard of this before. And then you got the cost of living is just going through the moon. Well, now we're getting indoctrinated or coerced into accepting the fact that we're going to be eating worm bugs very soon, and also the fact that the cost of electricity is going to be so out there that it's going to cost $100 or so to according to the Wall Street Silver put out this meme, or the Thomas Massey on response to Wall Street Silver put out that tweet that potentially to recharge a Tesla car in America could potentially cost $100. So look, I prefer to keep my V6. It gets me takes me a lot further. Diesel's the way to go.
Just crazy times, and when you actually put all those things together, rising cost of living, changes to the diet, and all the other stuff, and then false auctions, so not real auctions but pseudo auctions. We live in a strange old world.
Yeah, and this is where the powers to be just got no control of what's going on. They really don't. Like we see it at a micro scale, and then you talk about all this. Now we got Shaquille O'Neal coming in to make some sort of governmental making some sort of government policies with regards to the Indigenous community. You got all these wacky things happening all over the place. It's almost like politicians want to become movie stars and more, they're more focused on their personality than what they are in actual, getting some real policy on hand to develop the nation, to make it a better country for us, the people that pay their bloody wages. But they won't, they don't, and the world is just gone wacky and it's getting crazier by the day.
Well, talking about crazier by the day, this next video is an absolute perler. You sent it through to me earlier on this evening, and I watched it, and I could not believe it. How do they manage to squeeze a property onto a verge?
Well, look, it's Blacktown LGA, Martin. This is it. Like I put out on my Twitter post over the weekend, Blacktown will never let me down. This is it. This is insane. Effectively, it's a 5/6 dwelling home that's going to be configured. I think I counted. It's got five bathrooms, albeit one of them being a powder room, so therefore there's no shower there. And they've squeezed it all in on this narrow block. They've made use of almost every blade of grass. This really goes. I would give, if there was an award for making the most out of a block of land, this will win it. And then I would call the award the Blacktown Council Salim Mahaj Award, because you can with.
Well, we should challenge our followers. If you know of a more wacky piece of development, send us pics. We'll feature it in the show.
Oh, look, I've got Lebanese friends that would have loved to put the developer friends that I'm sure that they could put plans together, and with the right type of bag. They could have got a four-level apartment block there.
It doesn't bear thinking about, does it? And just keep going on the most incredulous things to think about, right? Well, funnily enough, somebody was calling the bottom has come.
That's it. This is part two of are we really close to the bottom? Where we saw the macro business put out that article with regards to our friend Tom, that was beating his chest and was calling the bottom of the market. And this is it. This is 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. We all want to rock and roll and so forth. I can't remember how that song goes, but you go somewhere along those tracks. And now, with the tail between the legs, I don't think we will have the frenzied selling in spring, but let's see. My clearance rate this week was 4 out of 11 sold. How long have we been saying, Martin? One auction sale, one high sale, one low sale, one low point, high point, one weekend's auction or two consecutive auctions do not make the market. This is, our followers know this, but obviously these other people don't, and they really need to follow our podcast. So I have invited Tom, by the way, to come on and second time around, and let's see if he takes on the invitation, because I do take interest in what he says out there, because he is well connected with a lot of agents, and he does have a lot of first-hand information, which has been valuable to us in the past. But at the same time, you just got to be careful what you say, and as you and I have been saying, watch the numbers, because numbers don't lie, everybody else does.
That's very true, Edwin. And if Tom wants to come on, he'd be more than welcome. Love to have a chat with him about what he's seeing. And as you say, one swallow doesn't make a summer when it comes to trends in the property market, right? And I will just make this point, Edwin. You know that the RBA started lifting rates in May. Well, it takes about 2 months for that rate hike to actually translate through to a real increase in the direct debit or order from an account, because the bank's got to give notice and then they have to slot it into the sort of the normal monthly cycle for repayment. So what it means is that most households have only seen 1 or maybe 2 increases so far. There are 2 more biggies to come for those on variable rates. That's one of the things that I think people have not understood. The lag in the system is quite significant here.
Look, it is, and along those same lines, it takes with that lag. There's also a psychological lag, and there's also that lag in the conversation between the real estate agents and their vendors or their clients. And then it's as you and I say, it's a lag. It takes time, and then obviously there's the lag with the hedonic imputation, the daily index numbers that CoreLogic put out there, and we say that there's even a 72-day lag, and it takes all that to come to the forefront for people to understand, and then they start making those decisions. So look, you and I know, and I'm confident that we will see those numbers rise over spring. We talked to a number of agents ourselves, myself personally, as well as the rest of the team. We know what's out there. We know how many, in certain areas, certain parts of Sydney, in the greater metropolitan area, they're already seeing. We're already seeing where in some areas where there was 25, 27 listings of homes for sale in a particular postcode. Now we're looking at anywhere between 55 and 65. Blacktown itself, has almost doubled the numbers over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So, and this is where areas where it's they're heavily made up of investor-owned properties, therefore renters as well. So we're going to see those changes, which will also be reflected in your surveys, with where you see the rental, where you see both rental stress as well as mortgage stress and other types of financial stress. So, and you've got your Liverpool LGAs, you've got your Blacktown LGAs, which for me has been for decades the canary in the coal mine, because of the diversity of communities that live there, and the diversity of dwellings, properties, and price points. From anywhere from your $500,000 housing commissions, 550, all the way up to your 2.5, 3 million properties at Kellyville.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you, I mean, I just run the numbers on the August surveys coming today for the final time. And mortgage stress and rental stress are both up. In fact, I'll give you guys an exclusive on this particular show. I'll reveal here the latest stress chart. There's going to be some more information coming out over the next few days. But mortgage stress, rental stress, higher than it has ever been in the whole of the 20 years I've run the survey. So it's coming home to roost, and we're going to see more of it ahead.
You've heard it first, and you heard it live on the Monday Night Property Rants, right after what's wackier than a conspiracy theory.
Just watch it, Edwin. And talking of other things that, well, actually I think are a bit conspiratorial, here's a question for you, Edwin. What is superannuation for?
Look, it's got to be to build 1 million homes. It's got to be to build 1 million homes, and those helicopter blades that they've got out there down towards Canberra.
Well, it is wacky, right? I'll tell you something. You may not know this. There is actually no clear articulation of what superannuation is for, right? It's not actually anywhere said it's to provide you an income in your old age, right? And so it's one of the reasons why all the politicians and everybody else keep sniffing around superannuation. And we could use it for this, we could build more homes, or we could do this or do that, right? My immediate reaction is, get your hands off my money.
Yeah, well, that's why a lot of people have gone, considering the fact that we're such a small nation made up of a small in comparison to a lot of countries in the rest of the world. The working population is not that big. But yet, what we've got $3.3 trillion or something in
3.3 trillion.
Held in super. I'm sure the Biden administration would like to get a hold of that and pay student loans out or something. We can help them pay their student loans. But the thing is, Martin, the thing is that there's a hell of a lot of money. There's a hell of a lot of money sitting there, and it is becoming. It's a big temptation. I mean, how many politicians want to put their hand in that cookie jar? I can only start to imagine. But But I was saying before was that, look, for about the last 15 years, from about 15, maybe 17 years ago, a lot of people started moving towards self-managed super funds. I mean, they were doing crazy stuff with the self-managed super funds, but all because of of this fact that the politicians can't stop putting the dirty little grubby hands into that cookie jar. One, and using it for other things, for their own benefits, and two is because a lot of these super funds lose so much of that, but yet obviously they're getting their fees. So look, I know a lot of people, have known a lot of people over the last 17 years that have just taken the money out and gone into self-managed super funds. Unfortunately, a lot of them have also gone into buying off-the-plan apartments in Melbourne and in Queensland over the last decade or so. But this is the problem. So now you've got the Financial Review that put that article out. Can we use it for the to saving the environment? or do we use it for to house the homeless? Or that what they really want to put, they should have put the third point there is, or should we use it to give our politicians a wage rise? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
Well, a couple of interesting observations. The first is a lot of the superannuation, that 3.3 trillion, is invested offshore, overseas, rather than in Australia at the moment. The second point, the growth in self-managed superannuation has been quite significant. In fact, relative to last year, there are more self-managed super funds now rather than less. In fact, I did a show on this with Robbie Barwick the other day, pulling apart this whole superannuation con, right? And the third is, you make the point about the fees. This is really important, right? They always take the fees off the top, 26, 28, 30 billion a year, a large, really large number. Those fees are really critical because, in fact, the fees make such a huge difference to the end outcome. And in fact, on that earlier show with Robbie, I actually showed a couple of examples of, the level of fees and how that changed the savings outcome over many years because of compounding. This is a scam tied up inside a government initiative. And as you say, it really is just saying, help yourself. And that's a problem. We really need this much better safeguard. We need to have the superannuation system restructured to be able to really understand precisely what it's for. And I'm not sure that tapping into it to do environmental things or to help build houses or whatever, is really in the spirit of what the original intention was, which, by the way, when Hawke announced it, the idea was that it would stop us borrowing overseas. Well, that didn't work. We're borrowing more overseas than ever before. So all crazy.
Yeah, look, it is. And it's like we keep on saying over and over again, it's only going to get crazier before it can get better.
Yep.
Putting Band-Aid solutions on something that needs to be amputated is not going to be, it's not going to get the job done. And, when I talk about, something being amputated, the thing that needs to be amputated is basically the public servants that make up most of which are made up of politicians.
Well, it certainly does seem to be wondering sometimes what their agenda is. Now, before we close, you've got some very important handy hints relating to pets.
Yeah, look, with the saga, we've gone through a little bit of saga with Prince Elgato. In adopting him, the current owner got it from a previous owner, and what happened was she didn't change the papers on Prince's papers. So we took him to the vet today in order, obviously, to get him desexed because we don't want to introduce him to Dusty and Evan just yet because he's a male cat and he hasn't been desexed, and we want just make sure that everything's right with him. So we took him there, and unfortunately, now, Prince is he's in jail. He's because the owner the owner didn't do the paperwork. So look, there's going to be a lot of upheaval for people that are downsizing, people that are moving interstate, people that are moving from one rental accommodation to another, and in the next place that won't necessarily be able to accommodate their little friends. So I just want to encourage our followers, if that is going to happen to you and you do have a pet and you have found them a good home, just make sure that the paperwork and everything is in order, because now Prince is in they're saying he's in Cat Hotel. I reckon it's more like a bloody jail, and I wouldn't want to be there. So look, with all the upheaval that's going on, Martin, and with tenancies going haywire and the shortages, and I know which is a sad turn of events for a lot of renters with little friends, is that a lot of property managers over the last 3 years, for some reason or another, I can't put my finger on it what it is, but they've really turned their backs on our little friends, and they're making it very hard for families or people that have got friends that life companions in terms of their little friends that they want to take with them. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. So look, just to make it easier, just get everything in order before you give them to the next person that's going to make make a home for the little friend.
Absolutely, good advice. It's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day who's got a couple of rental properties. They actually go after people with pets because what they've learned is that people with pets are generally more caring and more careful with the properties, which is interesting.
Here's something for you, Martin. There's an article that an observation that I put out with Domain when they used to take my observations and when I had close contact with Domain, and there was an article that tongue in cheek, I wrote an article. It's still out there in Google, and about how we prefer to take on families with pets than we did with families with little kids.
Oh, close to the knuckle, Edwin. Close to the knuckle. Very good.
Because the outcome was a hell of a lot better. Yeah, they don't put crayons on the walls. Yeah, they may make a bit of a mess on the floor, but hey, that's easier to fix. But when you have to paint a whole apartment or a 4-bedroom house because you got crayon marks everywhere and all sorts of other things. Yeah, it was a tongue in cheek. It was just to talk about more about the situation where tenants, renters with pets were basically put to the wayside, to the bottom of the list when it came to accommodating them. So I put that article. I did get a call. I got a call from a professor of Sydney University, just berated me about this, and I said, "Madam, at the end of the day, it was just meant to be tongue in cheek." So whatever.
We'll just make one more point, Edwin, before we go, and that is that different councils actually have different regulations about outdoor pets versus not outdoor pets, right? That's the other thing to check as well, because you might be surprised. Yeah,
they do, and it's very important that is a very, very important point that you've reminded me of, Martin, because like the Blue Mountains Council, an outdoor cat has to have a bell. They have to be pretty much desexed, a male cat, and have a bell. And look, Prince, he's lived outdoors and he's not an indoor cat, so we want to let him enjoy, and he'll mark his territory around the property, and go and say hello to to Lucy and Nancy and the rest of the chickens and Jose from time to time. I can imagine scare the crap out of them, but we just want him to have a life.
Exactly. Well, Edwin, as always, some very useful points I think that we've covered tonight, and it was good getting Rob's view from WA. If we can find some other people who are interested in coming on and talking about a particular market that they know well, that's something which we could certainly welcome, I think, just to bring a little bit more depth of analysis, because we don't want to just focus in on New South Wales, but you are based in New South Wales, and so therefore by definition that's where we start, but we are actually interested in the situation across the country as well. So thanks for your time as always, and guess what, we'll do it all again next week.
Well, definitely, Martin. Look, the chooks are laying eggs now. A lot of them are getting about on average 3-4 a day now. So
wow.
Come up, we'll have an omelette, and we can do the rant at the over an omelette.
The mind boggles. Okay, Edwin, thanks very much. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.